The Panthers tonight have a chance to take a 2-0 series lead. We'll preview tonight's game and we'll discuss all the road success, all on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, May 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12, and thankful to be joined from the 5 Reasons Sports Network, Alex Baumgartner here on the show for today's edition of the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And you could do that all on FanDuel. So, Panther fans, grateful to be back here once again on the show to discuss everything in the world of the Florida Panthers. It's a game day here tonight as the Panthers take on the Carolina Hurricanes for a chance to take a 2-0 series lead. And Alex, first of all, welcome to the show. And I want to start off, I want to give you the floor to start off this segment, like maybe 60 to 90 seconds, and just your overall impressions from the Florida Panthers on just how they've been able to go on this run and also take a 1-0 series lead for in this Eastern Conference final.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think the last 2 games have looked business as usual for the Panthers. The scoreline's a little bit surprising for playoff games. Going back to Game 7 and that 6-1 win over Toronto, less than 48 hours after that emotional win, they turn the table, play the Eastern Conference final Game 1 in Raleigh. They made it pretty clear that they actually rather the schedule be like that than sitting for a couple of days. Obviously, Carolina sat for about 4.5, 5 days since they won in 5 against Washington. So it's a tale of 2 different fates. The Panthers, like they did 2 years ago, where they beat Boston in 7, had to immediately go to Toronto, and they won that series in 5, including going up 3-0 early with 2 road wins. They go into Raleigh and they wax Carolina in that first game. And I think there was a lot compared to the Toronto game. It was kind of similar, but I felt a little more comfortable for the Panthers. There was never really a moment other than the first couple minutes of the second, since Carolina took a late goal in the first to get one back. It didn't really feel like there was any moments that it was too threatening for the Canes. At least that was my initial takeaway from Game 1. Game 7, obviously, when Toronto got that push in the first period, it looked kind of threatening when it was 0-0. I didn't see too much of that from Carolina in Game 1.
Yeah, and more importantly, when you go from one period to the next and you have the long change period, the Panthers have been able to protect the rush so much better, and when it comes to just the pinches and just you make one stop and that's building your game from there. And I think that Sergei Bobrovsky has just been key once again. But also when it comes to just the Panthers and their ability to counter, one thing that I discussed after Game 1 was the Panthers exposed what Carolina was able to do best, and that's their rush defense, which was best coming into the Eastern Conference final, and their penalty kill, obviously with 2 power play goals to start the series, which equaled the amount that they have given up in their 10 playoff games prior to that. So it's funny because Paul Maurice actually spoke to the media and actually kind of changed his tune a little bit. Not exactly. It wasn't a full 180 of changing his tune. He discussed about comparing 2 plays from a few years ago on going straight line with Nick Cousins. One ended up in a goal, one ended up in a goal in the back of their net. And it's funny because they're talking about the nickname for Niko Mikkola, the Condor, and the fact that they're able to get back. I mean, there was a goal in Game 5 that Niko Mikkola set up. He goes into the corner, gets back, and then takes a slap shot to extend the Panthers' lead. That was in Game 5 of the Toronto series. But just your overall impressions on just Maurice getting chirped on the bench by his team, and then looking at the video again, which he said it looked better on video than it did behind the bench.
I think with the Panthers, at least through the Toronto series and at portions of that game against Carolina, it's very evident where the biggest cause for concern is on their team. And it's when their defense pinches and it's not a guaranteed I'm getting that puck. Because more often than not, when they miss that pinch, it's an odd man rush going the other way. In Toronto, if they were able to capitalize on some of those chances in the series, I mean, Florida wouldn't be in the conference final. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Carolina had a few of those moments. Obviously, that one goal they got from Aho, Ekblad was trying to lob it over the defenseman. He kind of got caught when the defenseman caught the puck, and that kind of flipped the transition play. It happened a lot more in the Toronto series, and Game 5 and in Game 7, they kind of shut that down. It did not happen a lot. Even going back to Game 6, they weren't really pinching too much until the third period when they were trailing, and then all of a sudden, they said, we need to push a little bit more for offense, and that's how that second goal went in. When Florida's pinching like that, it's not the best recipe for success, and I've said it the last couple of weeks. They're better when they got two guys back and then they clog the neutral zone and they clog the top of the blue line with those defenders because the opposition has no clue what to do, especially with some of the big boys the Panthers have on defense. It's a big blue line. Aaron Ekblad, Nico Mikkola, Kulikov plays a big game. Schmidt plays a big game. It's a big blue line. So I think that's my biggest takeaway, that, you know, the inopportune pinches have definitely decreased over the last couple of games, but they still need to watch that.
Yeah, it's funny because you're talking this. I didn't even mention this is because in 2023, to think that these two teams, the Carolina Hurricanes and the Florida Panthers, those two teams had the most goals from the blue line. They were top two. Obviously, you had Brandon Montour with a record-setting season back in 2023 with 73 points, I believe it was, on the top of my head. But at the same time, the fact that you lose some guys and you're still able to play in the neutral zone and protect it, so there's not that full 200 feet of transition. So that's another thing that has just been a luxury for the Panthers but also credit to Sylvain Lefebvre on how he's been able to put these guys together. But also it's funny because once again, I want to go to the intimidation factor of the Panthers, just on how they psychologically they got into the heads of Carolina. Obviously the Brad Marchand and Shayne Gostisbehere, where there's no discipline on Shayne Gostisbehere, but I didn't even mention this part on the post game on Tuesday night going into Wednesday, that maybe it might have even started in the pregame availability after the Canes morning skate, where we're not in Raleigh. We're not in Raleigh right now. We might be. I know Alex will be there for a possible Game 5. I'm not sure if I will be there just yet. But the media situation in Raleigh is close to where the Panthers warm up and practice. So it all started with a medicine ball that Matthew Tkachuk was hitting towards some type of door, and just and I think that was maybe kind of the start. And to think that even the Panthers not getting rattled by Svechnikov going into the crease, which very similar to the not entirely similar, but hey, it happened for the Panthers getting into the kitchen of the Leafs in Game 1 for Anthony Stolarz, which Stolarz admitted that that's the move that concussed him, but he also said that he didn't believe that Bennett it was malintent. But also the fact that the Panthers don't get rattled by those things.
I mean, well, first of all, the media situation in Carolina, people have been saying for years, it's not the greatest in terms of space. It's probably one of the smaller visiting locker rooms in the NHL. All the post-game TV hits are in the same kind of area outside the locker room. I don't know the entire situation of that ground level there, but clearly there's not enough room. Yeah, obviously the Panthers are probably a little upset about that, but I don't know if that's going to boil over into the game. The Panthers are going to come out the way they come out every game and, you know, play in your face, play nasty. When I say nasty, doesn't mean dirty. I mean play, you know, a nasty game of hockey that irritates the opponent. And when Carolina tried to get into that nasty game, that's exactly what Florida wants. Florida wants you to stray away from your game and then play in their kitchen. They want you to play their style of hockey because nobody's better in the game this year. There's nobody in the game that was better last year. It's probably one of the better teams in the 2000s, at least 2010s on, of playing that nasty style of hockey. It kind of reminds me of those that cup-winning Bruins team. And that was 2011. So it's been a while since there's been a team this talented and this nasty. And the Panthers want you to play that game. Gostisbehere not getting fined. I mean, whatever. I don't care. It's kind of funny. He didn't get fined after admitting to reporters that he did get frustrated and shoot the puck at Mikkola. Russo from The Athletic mentioned in his article that Mikkola got fined earlier in the year for shooting a puck that didn't hit anybody against Montreal. But once again, a fine's a fine, a suspension's a suspension. I don't really care nonetheless. But yeah, Marchand definitely got him frustrated. I'm very surprised that Marchand got a misconduct from that play. If you want to give him the extra 2 for instigating, sure. Because you can't really prove on the ice Gostisbehere was trying to fire the puck at him, even though it looked kind of clear. But yeah, I think that was more of the why did he get tossed and get the extra penalty. But once again, Panthers are up in that game. They like when you're trying to get in their grill because you can't. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, and also the first power play goal that the Panthers scored, it was because Lindell was able to provoke Andrei Svechnikov. They didn't get the first one, but they were able to get the second retaliatory one, which happens a lot in sports. It's not just hockey that this happens in, where they don't see the first one, but they see the second. But
we're going to Aho one, right? Where he
Aho.
That's right.
Yeah. Aho, not Svechnikov. My bad there. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more of the Panthers' road success and what has been the key to it. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers a highlight-worthy performance and major momentum shifts and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot, a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And maybe you had some of your bets on the Indiana Pacers comeback last night against the New York Knicks, where it was 3 minutes left and the Indiana Pacers were down 11, and then Tyrese Halliburton hit that 2-pointer on the line to send it to overtime, where the Indiana Pacers were able to get the win and take a 1-0 series lead. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off with live player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play and smart and win big. So new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Segment 2 here on this Thursday, May 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here. And the Sports Business Journal has awarded the Panthers as the team of the year. So big congratulations to them. And also, the Four Nations Face-Off was the sporting event of the year. I know that Alex, you got to cover that in person. As far as you covered a lot of hockey in person, probably your favorite event that you've ever covered so far.
I would say so. Always wanted to go to an international hockey event. Four Nations was unbelievable, specifically in Montreal. The final was great in Boston too, but man, the lead up to that game 1 against Sweden for Canada was fantastic. Canada USA part 1 was unbelievable. Obviously, the gold medal game was great too. No qualms about that being the sporting event of the year. As for the Panthers winning team of the year, I mean, it's just a great time for hockey. Fantastic time for hockey. It's been my favorite sport for as long as I can remember, and the playoffs this year has been highly entertaining, especially last night watching that Dallas Edmonton game, that third period comeback.
Whew. 3 power play goals in 5 minutes that the Dallas Stars got to score 3 unanswered. And speaking of unfortunately, the Edmonton Oilers were unable to get a road win to start the series. And it's funny because Edmonton is second when it comes to goals on the road. They're 23, but the Panthers have 38. I mean, that's 4.75 goals per game in 8 games. Aaron Ekblad spoke about how it's unwavering, home and away, when it comes to road success. When you look at that board, Alex, when they put the pucks on the board, counting their wins from on their way to the Stanley Cup, which the Panthers have 7 to go, 6 of their 9 wins are on the road. And to think that how they're able to get these wins and not only win but score at such a high rate. And I mean, the key for me is 41% on the power play on the road during the playoffs. I mean, it started off with a bang with those 2 power play goals from Matthew Tkachuk in game 1 of the Tampa series, and to think that 17 goals since game 5 for the Panthers, and none of them have been Barkov or Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, it's funny because we say 6 of the 9 wins have been on the road, but they've only played 5 home games so far.
Yeah.
They only played 2 against Tampa, and they played 3 against Toronto. They haven't played 1 against Carolina. And if they're able to get it done on Thursday night, they would have 7 wins or 7 of 10. My mind's blanking right now. Before they even play game 1 or their first game at home in the conference final. So they like playing on the road. That's no question. They did it 2 years ago. No problem. They won in the Eastern Conference final. They won a couple big games against the Rangers on the road. Obviously, that big game 3 last year in Edmonton kind of set them up in a good position despite losing the next 2 over there in Alberta. But yeah, I think the home and away stuff is a little less important now. Teams are good on the road. Home teams haven't been holding home ice as well as you would think. Obviously, a little bit goes into that with the the crowd, but I think the last change in getting your matchup is more important. But players like being on the road. If it's a different little thing, you're closer to the group. You're taking the bus to the arena. You're having your pregame meal all in the hotel with the guys. Whereas if you're home, you're coming from the rink. You're back home with your family. It's a little bit of a different situation. As for the goals, yeah, I mean 17 different players with a goal entering the conference final for the Panthers. They've just been getting offense from everywhere. The fourth line has been one of the best spots of this team, and that fourth line was the fifth line entering the playoffs. This is the deepest team the Panthers have ever had.
Yeah, and it's crazy because Tomas Nosek going into the first line when Evan Rodriguez got hurt, Jesper Boquist going into the top line, and then even scores a goal in game 5 for the Panthers there. And that's also another thing that it's just guys stepping up, and to think that the fourth line for the Panthers, as Alex Baumgartner brings his dog onto the show, but sorry, trying to regain my train of thought here. But for the Panthers, guys stepping in different times. I mean, fourth line coming in, and even for the blue line, I mean, starting off with Aaron Ekblad with missing 2 games in the Tampa series, even missing 2 in between series as well. So that's another thing. And also, when it comes to this power play, Alex, I mentioned equaling the amount of power play goals from that Carolina has given up. Also, another thing that I'm recognizing is how they're able to read the inside of the ice whenever they're in the offensive zone. There was one power play goal that Barkov scored. I believe it was game 2 in the Toronto series. He's able to recognize that the defenseman, in the case of the Toronto series, it was Tanev that had his stick with one hand on his backhand. And as soon as he reaches it back on his forehand, he recognizes it. It happened in the same thing in game 1 on the Verhaeghe goal, where he sees Dmitry Orlov having the puck, having the stick on his backhand and then feeding Carter Verhaeghe. No one's able to collapse, and then he's able to roof that on Frederick Anderson. So that's another thing on just the high IQ plays, the quick decisions. It's not keeping the puck on their tape and getting it to the open teammate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first of all, the dog was sitting on the bed, and he was really excited. He heard you and me talking, so he kind of perked up. So I brought him here. But yeah, speaking of Barkov, I mean, just the hockey IQ, and he's coming off that half wall up to the middle of the circle. There's so many different options. He has one of the best snapshots in the league. Doesn't use it a lot, but as we saw in game 2 against Toronto, he was able to find the action. The power play has been good at times, but Man, I was just surprised at how much they got on Anderson. He allowed 3 or more goals once the entire postseason, had a 1.36 GAA entering the conference final, and they got 5 on him.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of unprecedented. Giving up 2 goals this postseason has been a rarity for him. So for it to happen, them getting 5 on him, I mean, I don't expect the same thing for game 2. But if it does, then there's some thought in the back of the head, like, what is going on? I thought the same thing happened with Vasilevsky, where they got him good in game 1. Maybe that can leave a little bit of an impact on the series. But yeah, the power play, they had different looks. It's funny. Carter Verhaeghe scored that first power play goal. And by the time they went back to the power play up 2-0, I think, they started playing contain. And they put 2 defensemen on the back end, and the power play didn't look as good. But they're definitely not trying to gamble too much.
Yeah, and I'm thinking that with Aaron Ekblad on that unit now, obviously putting him there, and the right-handed shot from the left flank. I mean, when you have a right-handed shot, you have more room to beat on the far side versus if you have a left-handed shot there, the goalie is able to read that a lot more. And also the thing for the Panthers is they're protecting the rush on the other end when you have 2 defensemen who are playing there. Although Aaron Ekblad's not really carrying the puck on the blue line as well, but if you need him to skate back and protect it, although Seth Jones can go from point to point also to protect it, that's another thing of just how they're able to just, especially when you have a lead, I think it's really important for the Panthers to just have those 2 guys on the ice. And the fact that we talk about how Aaron Ekblad was an offensive defenseman to start off his career and then transitioning that. And the fact that they're able to put those 2 guys in together while on the power play, I mean, they don't have the speed. The Carolina Hurricanes don't have the high end speed like the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's still there in order to protect the rush shorthanded.
Yeah, I mean, the Leafs were very scary, not necessarily on the PK because they do have those speedsters, but the Panthers are doing pretty well at kind of keeping it away from the top of the points. Yeah, I mean, Carolina was one of the best defensive teams entering the series, and they're still a great defensive team. We'll see what happens with when Jalen Chatfield can get back in, because that's one of those big bodies on the blue line that's ever important to their team. Yeah, I mean, it's there was a lot to like from that game 1, and I kind of understand when Paul Maurice said it looked better on tape than it did from behind the bench, because once you go back and look at it, you see the little things that all works out. I mean, that third line has just been eating teams all postseason, and I thought that was like the biggest aspect entering the Leaf series, that the Panthers just had way better strength on that third line, and it looks like in this Carolina series, at least through 1, that's going to be the case again. It's a lot's clicking right now.
Yeah, and also when you're on the bench, your head is more on a swivel than when you're watching it on the TV. You might see more of a guy in the corner versus the blue line all in one view. So you might not always see the play instantly for Paul Maurice. And also you have a little bit of time to think about again. It's like, okay, this shift happened before this. So that's another thing that helps when watching the tape again for Paul Maurice and company. So you mentioned Jalen Chatfield and then the Carolina blue line. So actually that will give us a great opportunity to transition over to segment number 3, where we'll discuss more about the Carolina blue line and how the Panthers can possibly find ways to get their a good amount of scoring chances on Freddie Anderson, as game 2 is tonight between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. We'll discuss that more next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Segment 3 here on this Thursday, May 22nd edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And before we start this segment, I want to say congratulations to the Charlotte Checkers on advancing to the Eastern Conference Final after their 6-3 victory over the Hershey Bears. Came back from down 2-0 to find a way to win. So congratulations to TJ Shalott, play-by-play voice of the Checkers and company there. So game 2 tonight, 8 p.m. on TNT. So once again, every other day that this Eastern Conference Final will be happening. So one of the keys that I thought about even more for this matchup is I was listening to the sheet with Jeff Merrick, and they had a Carolina reporter coming in into the show to discuss the blue line for the Carolina Hurricanes. Jalen Chatfield has been such a key piece. He was in that first conference final series between the Panthers and the Hurricanes. Played mostly on that third pair, but also has earned an extension. But also, he mentioned how Dmitry Orlov and Sean Walker are a pair that hasn't played with each other much throughout the season. So you think about how the situation that the Carolina Hurricanes find themselves in, and then you compare it to the Florida Panthers when they first trade for Seth Jones, the Aaron Ekblad suspension, and the fact that Paul Maurice was able to give Forsling and Seth Jones even some time together, even though they're not together right now. I mean, it's such a luxury knowing that you know where the other person is when it comes to puck support, and the fact that Aaron Ekblad has been able to get healthy. The miles aren't logged as much. Obviously, game action is so different than when you're practicing and going through rushes. So I think that for the Carolina Hurricanes, it's if you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan, you got to be definitely nervous because of the fact that those two haven't played together, and the fact that chances are I would believe that Scott Morrow will be taken out even if Chatfield's not healthy. Maybe they put Alexander Nichushkin in, which he's a prize prospect for them, just recently signed. But I think it's a situation where these pairs are not together, haven't been together as much, and you saw how the Florida Panthers were able to just easily screen around Freddie Anderson.
Yeah, it should be interesting what to see when we're looking at what Carolina is going to do if Chatfield can't go, or is Morrow still going to go. You mentioned their Nishkin, highly touted guy coming out of Russia. He did play in the playoffs. I don't know how many games he played, but he definitely played at least one game in the postseason last round. The thing with Florida is not only have almost all those guys been there before, playing last year in the Cup final. I mean, Schmidt's been there the whole year. Seth Jones, a top 5 pick. He has extremely high hockey IQ. That's a guy that it's easier to plug and play in season just because of all the hockey he's played. He's played in playoffs, the minutes he's logged as a top pair. Obviously, a little bit of a different situation coming from Chicago, but he's been fantastic. The Panthers are 7 deep on defense. Uvis Balinskis played in that Toronto series when Ekblad was suspended, scored a goal. He was very good in the Tampa series too. I mean, they're 7 deep. If one guy comes out, obviously you don't want one of those big boys coming out, but they have the full confidence to roll these 7 defensemen. I'm not too in depth with Carolina's blue line as I am with the Panthers. Obviously, I rate Jacob Slavin as highly as you can rate anybody in the National Hockey League. He's a fantastic defender. I think the way we think of Gustav Forsling is kind of the way that other people should be thinking about Jacob Slavin, and they do.
Yeah.
Because when I think of a defenseman, I want a guy that can shut things down over a guy that's going to jump up in the rush every single play, and that's exactly what Jacob Slavin is, just a legit defenseman. Obviously, Orlov's been there before. They have Chatfield when he can come back. They got experienced blue liners, but then again, you have Morrow coming in a very tough spot, game 1 against the defending champs. And the way the Panthers play, they'll eat you. Chris Tanev got hunted in that Leafs series, and he's the best defender on the Leafs. And he took 107 hits in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. I mean, the Panthers were just getting it down. I know you like saying that clip from Paul Maurice, get the puck deep and pound the F&D. That's what the Panthers do. And, maybe Nishkin comes in. He's a big boy. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So we'll see how he manages. I mean, although he's played a few games, it's a different ice here in North America for the NHL here for Alexander Nichushkin, and it takes a little while. I hope I'm pronouncing his name.
I definitely butchered it. I had to look up the pronunciation. I was forgetting the I. I was saying Nikishin. It's Nikishin.
Yeah. So I mentioned on the post game on Tuesday night that lines 2 to 4 got 9 shots on goal throughout of the 33, and the fact that the blue line for the Carolina Hurricanes had over 10. Mostly of the forwards, it was coming from the Aho, Svechnikov, Jarvis line. But the fact that the Panthers are kind of knowing where the shots are coming from, which Carolina is more of a team that gets shots from the point. So if you're going to get in front of those pucks, even if there's an awkward bounce from the forwards getting up on the blue line, it's less likely that there's going to be bounces that end up on a random part of the goalie, whether it's the shoulder, the mask, or even off the post/crossbar, versus if it's bouncing near the slot or the near the blue paint. The Panthers have been able to, although one game is a very short sample size, they've been able to at least have a little bit of time to clean it up inside in their own end, and also how quick they are of just to battle it out on the half one. The thing is that the key for Florida has been just the first pass out of the zone and how quickly they were able to get in transition, even if it hasn't resulted in the Panthers dumping in the puck and going in on their forecheck. So I think that's going to have to continue for the Panthers in order to limit the scoring chances, because we know there's enough tape out there that there is more of the quantity over quality chances for Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I think the simplest thing is just keep playing your game. If you can keep playing your game, if you don't stray away from getting the pucks deep, we're still early in the series.
Yeah.
The wear and tear isn't gonna hit in game 2 usually. It comes later. The Panthers always, even if they're up 3-0 in a series, we're playing like we play the series like we're going to game 7.
Yeah.
I remember 2 years ago when they were up 3-0 in Toronto. It's like, it's every game's a new game, and it's like we're playing like it's a game 7. Right? We're playing like we're gonna get to a game 7, and obviously that series went 5. But that's their game. It's wear and tear. It's not too much flashiness. It's not too much rushes up the middle. It's not too much this and that individual effort. It's, get the puck low. Stuff will open up because other teams don't know what to do. And then you got Eetu Luostarinen banging one in from the front of the net. That's just how the Panthers play hockey, and they're not going to stray away from it. At least they shouldn't. And I don't think they will at this point in the series or at this point in the playoffs.
Yeah. So Panthers were able to get 5 goals in game 1 against Carolina. Hey, we've seen how. And Paul Maurice discusses how he's not a believer in momentum, although the Panthers got 6 of them in game 1 in the Tampa series. We saw how very quickly, how it went to a very tight game 2 where the Panthers were able to win 2-0, and then the other goal coming as an empty netter. And I believe that first goal was Nate Schmidt in the Tampa series. Yes, it was Nate Schmidt. Sometimes the Panthers might have to get one of those unlikely goal scorers again, as we are expecting a hard tighter gap game, which these two teams are known for in as far as their style of play. But Alex, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Always a pleasure having you on the show. Tell everybody where they can follow you and your work online.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Follow me on Twitter, X, Blue Sky, whatever it's called, A Baumgartner 91, and all my articles are on 5 Reasons Sports. I'll give you daily articles on the Florida Panthers, including instant gamers during these postseasons.
Awesome. Thank you so much, my friend, and I will see you in person on Saturday. And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Alex Baumgartner, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.